Now, let's come to lists in R. What are lists in R? So a list in R is a generic object consisting of an ordered collection of objects. We can say it is a generic object which is having lot of objects inside it. One thing. Second is lists are one-dimensional. They are one-dimensional, which means there is just one column. You can imagine there is just one column and there is just a list of various values. Heterogeneous data structures, which means different types of values are there in the list. A list can have another list inside it. That can also be the case. So different types of data structures can be present in a list. The list can be a list of vectors, list of matrices, list of characters, and a list of functions, and so on. So we can say a list can have various kind of data, and that is why we call it heterogeneous data. So a list in R is created with the use of list function. I can have a list function and a list in R is created. So R allows accessing elements of a list with the use of the index value. So this is something that we have to understand, that when we are accessing a value in a list, how we will access it. So there is something called as index. The way we have index of everything, the same way for list also, every element is given an index number. So in R, the indexing of a list starts with 1 instead of 0, like other programming languages. So mainly we can say that indexing starts with 1 and not with 0. Now, this is our program to create a list. Now, just have a look of the data and try to understand what it is. So we can say that the first attribute is a numeric vector containing the employee ID, which is created using the command here, calling the C function. So you can see employee ID is equal to C and within brackets 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see the employee IDs are 4, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is a numeric vector. Now, the second attribute is the employee name, which is created using this line of code here, which is the character vector. So you can see employee name equals to C, and within brackets, Devi, Sandeep, Shubham, and Shiva. So these are the 4 names, but this is not a numeric vector. This is a character vector. Why I'm calling it a character vector? Because this vector is holding character data type. Now, let's have the third attribute, which is the number of employees, which is a single numeric variable. So now number of employee is just a variable. It is a single numeric variable, which is just a value 4. So you can see that all the 3 variables are of different type. The first one is the numeric vector, the second one is the character vector, and the third one is a single numeric value. So there are 3 different types of variables. Now, we have to create a list of these 3 variables. Very easy. We can do it. We can combine all these 3 different types of data into a list containing the details of employees, which can be done using a list command. So how we do it? We just call the list function, which is an inbuilt function list, and within the parenthesis, we pass employee ID, comma employee name, comma number of employees, and then it is stored in another variable. Here the name is emplist. So you can see that emplist is the variable which is holding the list. And list is what? It is a list of employee ID numbers, employee names, and details of number of employees. So basically 3 variables are there, and list is holding 3 different types of data. We can see the first one is the numeric, second is the character, and the third one is a single numeric variable. So students, we are not just creating a list. Let's have a look that how can we name a component of a list, or how we can modify components of a list. So here, a list can also be modified by accessing the components and replacing them with the ones which you want. So it is quite simple to modify the components of the list, because sometimes it is very important to name the components or modify the components of the list. Now, let's have a look of extracting components of the list with the help of square brackets, double square brackets, and $sign. So this R program is to edit components of a list, and let's see how we can do it. We are creating a list by naming all its components. You can see employee ID is 1, 2, 3, 4. Employee name is Devi, Sandeep, Shubham, and Shiva. Employee name is 4. And then we have created a list, and where we can see employee ID is equal to employee ID. So you can see over here that employee ID is given a name ID and employee name is given a name names. Likewise, number of employees is given a name total staff. So that is how we are calling the vectors that we have created and storing that with a header. But once we print the employee list, it prints the entire output, which means it will print 1, 2, 3, 4, Devi, Sandeep, Shubham, Shiba, and 4. It will print all the values. But when we modify at the top level, how we do it? If I say emplist dollar total staff, what will happen over here? If I write emplist dollar total staff equals to 5, this means that I will be replacing the 4 with 5. The value of number of employees was 4, but now I'm changing the value. I'm changing that component of the list. So total staff is equated to 5. Likewise, I'm modifying the inner levels. So if I want to modify the inner levels, how can I go about it? I say emplist first row and 5. A fifth position equals to 5, which means that I'm adding a employee ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically what I'm doing, when I'm writing double square brackets with 1, which means I'm calling the first row, which is employee ID. And then there I'm giving the location number 5, which means first row, fifth position is equated to 5. Likewise, if I say emplist 2, 2 means second employee, and there the fifth position is what? It is Kamla. So you can see over here that I have very quickly put certain values in my list. The only thing is that I need to have understanding of the three symbols: square brackets, double square brackets, and dollar sign. So after modifying, again I can use the same variable name emplist and I can print on the screen. So students, we will see over here that to access, now let's recap what we have done. To access components by indexes, we have to access the top level component of the list. We have to use double slicing operators. We call it double slicing operator. This double square bracket is called as double slicing operator, which is 2 square brackets. If we want to access the lower or the inner level component of the list, we have to use another square bracket along with the double slicing operator. So you can see another square bracket and another single square bracket. Now here you can see we are accessing components of a list. So we created a list by naming all its components. You can see I'm naming the list. I'm naming all its components. So very easy. You can see over here the same code. Employee ID is equal to C1234. Employee name is another vector, which is a character vector having variables Devi, Sandeep, Shubham, and Shiva. Now suppose I just want to access the components by names. What will I do? I will use the dollar symbol. So accessing name components using dollar symbol. How I can use it? I will be using the emplist, which is my variable, which is my list variable, and then I will write a dollar sign and I will write names. So name is what? This is my vector emp name. So my vector name is named as names. So if I have to pull the vector names, which is Devi, Sandeep, Shubham, and Shiva, I'm writing emplist dollar names. So you can see the output that if I'm using the dollar sign, only the second element of my list is displayed as output and not the complete list. Students, please note that the first line print emplist is printing all the three components, which is emp ID, emp name, and number of employees. But when I'm using print emplist dollar names, it means I'm pulling the name column, I'm pulling the name element of the list, and only one element is printed on the screen. Now, let's have a look of modifying the components. You can see over here in the code, there is employee ID, which is having the value 1, 2, 3, 4. There is employee name, which is having a value Devi, Sandeep, Shubham, and Shiva. And then number of employees, which is equal to 4. Then we have emplist, which is equal to list. Within the parenthesis, we are passing ID equals to emp ID, names equal to emp name, and total staff equals to number of employees. So basically, we are naming each and every component of the list. And after that, what we do? We start printing on the screen to see the results. So the first is the cat command before modifying the list. So you can see the caption comes on the output before modifying the list. So we print emp list and we get the entire list on the screen. After that, we give modifying the top level component. That is the, if I'm modifying a top level component, how will I do it? I write emp list dollar total staff. So directly I'm calling total staff, equating it to 5. So now you can see that after modifying, if I'm printing a particular screen output on the screen, what will come? So first what I have done, I have modified total staff to 5, which means that now my new value of total staff, which is number of employees, would be 5 and not 4. Modifying the inner levels, what I'm doing, emp list first row, which is basically first element, and the fifth position is equated to 5. Likewise, emp list second element and the fifth position is equated to Kamla. We can see that the first list was the emp ID, in which I have added one particular code of employee ID, and the second one is the employee name, where I have added the employee name. And after that, I am printing the modified list. Let's see how I'm printing. So I call just a print command, and within brackets I pass emp list. So let's see what is the output after modification. So on the right hand side, if you see, you will see after the modified list, if I see the $ID which is there, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for dollar names, I get Devi, Sandeep, Shubham, Shiba, and Kamla. And the total staff becomes 5. So you can see the values that I have changed, which you can see in the red color in the code, that is reflected in the output. Now, let's have a look on the concatenation of lists. What do you mean by concatenation of list? Two lists can be concatenated using the concatenation function. Concatenation is a property in chemistry where a carbon forms a long chain. But here in the list, if we see, it is a property where the lists form a long chain and they are printed on the screen. So basically, concatenation of list means that when I'm combining a lot of lists and making a long chain. So when we want to concatenate two lists, we have to use the concatenation operator. There is an operator concatenation that we have to use. You can see the syntax over here. List is equal to C and within brackets list 1 and list 2. So you can see over here, list 1 is the original list and list is the original list and list 1 is the new list. So you can see over here that the list is added with list 1 and the resultant is again stored into the list variable. On the left hand side, we see that list and list 1 are added together and restored into the list variable. So let's have a look of this program and understand better. Here you can see employee ID is there, C1, 2, 3, 4. Employee name, with the help of combine function, we have Devi, Sandeep, Shubham and Shiba. Number of employees 4. Employee list is my list variable, which is equal to ID, employee ID, names, employee names, and total staff is number of employees. Now I bring the print command and print the result on the screen. So I print the employee list and after that I create one more list. Now my new list is what? Employee age, which is 34, 23, 18 and 45. And then my one more employee age list is there where age is equal to employee age. So you can see over here that I have created another list, which is the name of that is list. And there I have taken just one vector employee age and that is named age. So now I'm trying to concatenate list of using the particular with the help of concatenation operator. So I am using emp list, which is equal to C. Now C is my function which is concatenating the two lists. So you can see the first one is the emp list and second one is the emp age list. So emp list is one and emp age list is the second list and the final result is stored into the emp list. So you can see over here that emp list is my final variable which is holding both the lists joined together. And after concatenation of the new list, we print the emp list on the screen. So that is how we are printing the emp list on the screen. And you can see that we are concatenating the values.